Beneath the golden glow of crystal chandeliers, the grand ballroom of the estate in the Hollywood Hills was buzzing. The most distinguished guests from Los Angeles society moved through elegant conversations, while a live jazz band played smooth melodies that mingled with the clinking of champagne flutes. It was a night like many others in American high society, where the country's most powerful families gathered to celebrate another successful corporate merger. Sophia Grace Hayes, 24, moved discreetly among the guests, balancing a silver tray with gourmet appetizers. Her emerald eyes sparkled under the lights, contrasting with her pale skin and long brown hair pulled back in a pristine bun. Despite the simplicity of her black uniform with a white apron, there was something in her posture that made her subtly stand out from the crowd. Her movements were graceful, her smile genuine when a guest thanked her, and her presence, though discreet, didn't go completely unnoticed. For 3 years, she had worked as a housekeeper in that mansion, living in the small maid's quarters in the basement. It was a humble but dignified life that allowed her to send money to her sick mother in Santa Monica and continue studying accounting at night. Sophia had learned to become invisible, to not bother anyone, to serve without being seen. But that night, something would change the course of her life forever. Nathaniel Alexander Williams, 32, watched the celebration from the other end of the room. He was the heir to the largest textile empire in the country, a man whose presence commanded immediate respect. His sky-blue eyes scanned the room with the precision of someone accustomed to controlling every detail. Tall, with an athletic build and an aristocratic bearing, Nathaniel wore an impeccably tailored Italian suit that highlighted his imposing figure. His angular face, with a firm jawline and black hair perfectly slicked back, had appeared on the cover of financial magazines more times than he could count. But behind that facade of perfection, Nathaniel carried the weight of family expectations and the loneliness of someone who had never known genuine love. At 32, he had had calculated relationships, convenient engagements, but he had never felt that someone truly saw him, and not just his fortune or his name. The night passed without incident until one of the guests, Mr. Robert Thompson, a competing businessman known for his venomous tongue, began to raise his voice after several glasses of aged whiskey. "Nathaniel, my boy," he said with a malicious grin, "I wonder if in this beautiful house you have any employees, shall we say, with interesting pasts." The comment made some guests turn curiously. Nathaniel frowned, not understanding what Mr. Thompson was getting at. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Thompson," Nathaniel replied with a polite coldness. "Oh, but I think you do," the older man continued, discreetly gesturing towards where Sophia was serving. "That pretty little girl. Haven't you wondered why such an educated and elegant young woman works as a maid? Doesn't it strike you as curious?" The ballroom began to sink into an expectant silence. Sophia felt all eyes turn to her, and her heart started to pound. She knew exactly what Mr. Thompson was insinuating, and she felt the world wobble beneath her feet. Nathaniel, annoyed by the insinuation and instinctively protecting one of his household staff, strode firmly towards the conversation. "Mr. Thompson, any comment you have to make about my staff, you can direct it to me," Nathaniel said in a controlled but threatening voice. But Mr. Thompson, emboldened by the alcohol and the audience, didn't stop. "Ah, but this is fascinating," he exclaimed. "It turns out our dear Sophia has a little reminder of her past." At that moment, Sophia dropped the tray. The crash of breaking glass on the marble echoed like thunder in the tense silence of the room. Tears began to well up in her green eyes and her face paled. Nathaniel, not fully understanding what was happening but feeling a protective fury he hadn't experienced before, made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. "If you have something to say about Sophia," Nathaniel's voice resonated clear and authoritative throughout the ballroom, "you can say it to my face. But first," the silence was absolute. 150 people held their breath. Nathaniel approached Sophia, who was visibly trembling, and in a surprisingly gentle voice he said, "Sophia, please take off your uniform jacket." The request, as unexpected as it was devastating, made the very air seem to thicken. Sophia looked at him with eyes full of terror and silent pleading, but Nathaniel nodded almost imperceptibly, as if telling her to trust him. With trembling hands, Sophia took off her uniform jacket, revealing a simple white blouse. But what everyone saw then was not her blouse, but what peeked out from her neckline and continued towards her left shoulder, an elaborate and distinctive tattoo. It was a bald eagle clutching a serpent, but not just any bald eagle. It was the symbol of a special military unit that had been officially disbanded 5 years earlier after an international scandal. The ballroom erupted in murmurs, gasps, and whispered comments. Some guests immediately recognized the symbol, Others simply knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Sophia, with tears streaming down her cheeks but holding her head high with dignity, lifted her chin and faced the looks of curiosity, disdain, and fascination that surrounded her. Nathaniel, for the first time in his life, didn't know what to say. He was looking at a woman who had evidently been part of something much bigger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Mr. Thompson, triumphant, raised his glass. There you have it. The Maid is a former elite soldier, a unit that officially never existed, that specialized in covert operations, and was disbanded after, well, certain international incidents. The weight of those words fell on Sophia like a tombstone. Her carefully constructed world of anonymity was crumbling to pieces. Her legs threatened to give out, but a firm, warm hand held her by the arm. Nathaniel had come to her side, and ignoring the stares of everyone present, held her with protective firmness. "I think you've seen enough for one night," Nathaniel announced, with an authority that allowed no discussion. "The party is over." But the damage was already done. In a matter of minutes, Sophia's secret life had been exposed to the most powerful and influential elite in the country. And now both she and Nathaniel would have to face the consequences of a truth that was destined to remain buried forever. As the guests began to retreat in whispering groups, Nathaniel helped Sophia pick up the broken glass shards from the floor. Their hands briefly touched as they reached for the same fragment, and in that moment they both felt an electric connection that neither of them could deny. "Are you okay?" Nathaniel asked her in a low voice, his blue eyes filled with a genuine concern that surprised them both. Sophia nodded, although they both knew that nothing would ever be the same after this night. Chapter 2. The days that followed the revelation in the ballroom were a whirlwind of changes that neither of them had anticipated. The Williams estate, which had once been a refuge of aristocratic tranquility, had become the epicenter of rumors, speculation, and a level of media attention that Nathaniel had never experienced before. Sophia woke up the following Monday in her small basement room, feeling as if she had lived a nightmare. But reality hit her when she heard unfamiliar voices in the garden. Peeking through the small window that overlooked the street level, she saw several news vans parked in front of the mansion's main gate. "Maid with a secret military past at Williams' mansion," read one of the headlines she managed to see on one of the gardener's phones. Her heart sank even further. Nathaniel hadn't slept all night. From his private office on the second floor, he had been making phone calls, trying to get the situation under control. His image consultants, his lawyers, and his trusted partners were bombarding him with questions that he himself couldn't answer. "Nathaniel, we need to know exactly what kind of operations that military unit was involved in," his lead lawyer, Mr. Morales, was telling him over the phone. "If there's any risk of national security or legal implications." "I don't know," Nathaniel admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Until last night, I thought Sophia was just an exemplary housekeeper." "And what are you planning to do now?" "The press is speculating with all sorts of theories. Some are saying she's a spy, others that she's a fugitive." Nathaniel closed his eyes. The image of Sophia trembling the night before, vulnerable yet dignified, wouldn't leave his mind. "I'm going to talk to her," he decided. "I deserve to know the truth, and she deserves a chance to explain." Meanwhile, in the basement, Sophia received a call she had been both waiting for and dreading. "Sophia? This is Colonel Ramirez." Her former commander's voice sent a chill down her spine. She hadn't heard from him in 5 years. "Colonel," she replied automatically, reverting for a moment to military discipline. "I need to see you. Today. Last night's incident has complicated certain situations we thought were resolved." "What do you mean?" "There are people who thought you had disappeared for good. Your public appearance has sparked some interest. Let's meet at the Grand City Coffee House at 3 this afternoon, and Sophia, be very careful." The line went dead, leaving Sophia with more questions than answers, and a fear she thought she had buried years ago. A gentle knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Mrs. Carmen, the mansion's cook for 20 years, a maternal 60-year-old woman who had always been kind to Sophia. "Honey," she said with a worried voice, "the boss wants to see you in his office." Sophia nodded, knowing that this moment was inevitable. She changed her clothes, choosing a simple but elegant navy blue dress she had bought with her savings months ago, thinking she might need it someday for an office job interview. She never imagined she would wear it to explain her military past to her employer. Nathaniel's office was on the second floor of the mansion, with a panoramic view of the meticulously manicured gardens and beyond the city stretching into the distance. It was an impressive space, with mahogany bookshelves filled with books on economics and American history, an imposing desk, and paintings by renowned American artists. When Sophia entered, Nathaniel was standing in front of the large window, looking outside. He was wearing grey dress pants and a white long-sleeved shirt, no tie, with the first few buttons undone. He looked more human, less intimidating than he had in his formal suit the night before. "Please have a seat," he said without turning around, gesturing towards one of the leather chairs in front of his desk. Sophia obeyed, placing her hands on her lap and bracing for the worst. Nathaniel finally turned and looked at her. In the natural daylight, he was truly able to appreciate her face for the first time. Her green eyes held depth, intelligence, and something else he couldn't define. Despite the circumstances, there was a serenity about her that intrigued him. "I need you to tell me the truth," he began, sitting behind his desk but maintaining a relaxed posture. "Not to judge you, but to understand how I can help you with this situation." Sophia looked him straight in the eyes, making a decision she had been putting off for 5 years. "The unit was called the Silent Eagles," she began in a firm voice. "It was a special division of the U.S. Army that specialized in counterintelligence and national security operations. Officially, we never existed." Nathaniel nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I was a communications and data analysis specialist. My job was to intercept, decipher, and analyze classified information. I was very good at what I did." "What happened? Why was the unit disbanded?" Sophia sighed deeply. "We discovered a corruption network that reached very high levels of government. Arms traffickers who were selling American military equipment to foreign criminal groups. When we reported our findings, things got complicated." "What kind of complications?" 3 members of our team turned up dead in what were officially traffic accidents. Others disappeared. I got lucky. My commander got me a new identity and helped me officially die. Sophia Grace Hayes died in a supposed car accident 5 years ago. The woman you know technically doesn't exist in any official records." Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, processing the magnitude of what he had just heard. "And you've been living in hiding all this time?" "I was living peacefully, working, studying, taking care of my mother. I thought I could have a normal life, until last night." "Sophia," Nathaniel leaned forward, "are you in danger now?" Before she could answer, Nathaniel's phone rang. It was his personal assistant, Mr. Williams. "There's a gentleman here who says he needs to speak urgently with you and Ms. Hayes. He identifies himself as Colonel Ramirez. He says it's a matter of national security." Nathaniel and Sophia looked at each other. The past had come knocking on the door of the Williams estate. "Let him in," Nathaniel decided, standing up. Colonel Ramirez was a middle-aged man with a robust build, a neatly trimmed mustache, and a presence that automatically commanded respect. He was dressed in a civilian suit, but his military posture was unmistakable. His dark eyes moved between Nathaniel and Sophia, assessing the situation. "Mr. Williams," he began formally, "I apologize for the intrusion, but last night's events have created a delicate situation." "Please, have a seat," Nathaniel offered. "What kind of situation?" "The public exposure of Lieutenant Hayes has caught the attention of certain elements we thought were neutralized," the colonel explained, looking directly at Sophia. "There are people who have unfinished business with the Silent Eagles." "What kind of people?" Nathaniel asked. "The same people we wanted to disappear 5 years ago. Arms traffickers with international connections, corrupt politicians, people who benefited from the unit being disbanded." Sophia felt the world wobble again. "Are they looking for me?" "They've already found you, Lieutenant. The question is what we're going to do about it." Nathaniel, who had been listening in silence, suddenly understood the magnitude of the situation. Not only was there an extraordinary woman working in his house, but now both of them were potentially in danger. "What are our options?" Nathaniel asked. "Well," the colonel replied, "we could create another identity for Sophia and hide her again, or—" he paused meaningfully. "You two could work together to resolve this problem once and for all." "What do you mean?" Nathaniel and Sophia asked in unison. "You have something that these people want to avoid at all costs: public credibility and resources. Nathaniel, your media and financial influence, combined with Sophia's information and skills, could be the key to finally exposing the corruption network that we could never completely dismantle." Nathaniel looked at Sophia, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and terror in her green eyes. In that moment, he realized that this mysterious woman had come into his life not by chance, but perhaps by destiny. "How dangerous would it be?" Nathaniel asked. "Very dangerous," the colonel admitted honestly. "But Sophia has been running for 5 years. This could be her chance to finally reclaim her life." Sophia stood up and walked to the large window, looking out at the gardens where she had worked peacefully for 3 years. Nathaniel watched her, admiring her quiet strength. "What do you think, Sophia?" he asked softly. She turned around, and for the first time since he had known her, Nathaniel saw pure determination in her eyes. "I've been running for 5 years," she said in a firm voice. "Maybe it's time to fight." Nathaniel felt a deep admiration, and something else he didn't dare to name. This woman was not only beautiful and mysterious, but also brave beyond imagination. "Then," Nathaniel said, standing up and walking over to her, "we'll do it together." The colonel smiled for the first time. "I knew I could count on you two." But none of them knew that at that very moment, in a corporate office on the other side of the city, 3 men in dark suits were planning something that would change the course of this story forever. Chapter 3. The transformation of the Williams estate in the following days was extraordinary. What had once been an aristocratic refuge of peace and tranquility had now become something resembling an operations center. Nathaniel had installed additional security systems, Colonel Ramirez had brought in 2 trusted agents for surveillance, and Sophia had begun working from a makeshift office in the library, analyzing information that had remained dormant for 5 years. Nathaniel had realized that he was seeing Sophia with completely different eyes. She was no longer the discreet and efficient employee who served in silence. Now he watched her work with classified files, seeing how her brilliant mind connected dots that others had missed, admiring the intense concentration with which she studied complex documents. There was something hypnotic about the way she slightly furrowed her brow when she concentrated, how she bit her bottom lip when she found something interesting, and how her green eyes lit up when she discovered an important connection. Sophia, for her part, was discovering facets of Nathaniel that she had never imagined. Far from just being the millionaire heir she had known, Nathaniel showed a sharp business intelligence, a natural leadership ability, and something that surprised her even more, a genuine concern for doing the right thing, even when it meant putting his own reputation and safety at risk. "I found something," Sophia announced one afternoon, looking up from the laptop Nathaniel had provided for her. Nathaniel, who had been reviewing contracts at the other end of the library, immediately put down his documents and walked over. Colonel Ramirez, who had been drinking coffee while studying reports, also came to the table where Sophia was working. "What did you discover?" Nathaniel asked, leaning over Sophia's shoulder to see the screen. His closeness allowed him to detect the subtle scent of her perfume, something fresh and floral that he found incredibly attractive. "Look at these bank transfers," Sophia pointed, seemingly unaware of the effect her proximity was having on Nathaniel. In the months leading up to the disbandment of the Silent Eagles, there was a series of very specific financial movements between shell companies. "What kind of movements?" the colonel asked. "Money that went into accounts in tax havens and was then redistributed to different American companies. Some of those companies," she paused dramatically, "are subsidiaries of companies that are now direct competitors of Williams Textiles." Nathaniel straightened up, processing the information. "Are you saying that my competitors could be involved in the corruption you discovered 5 years ago?" "It's more complex than that," Sophia continued, opening another file. "It seems there was a plan to eliminate problematic American businessmen who wouldn't cooperate with the arms trafficking scheme. Your company, Nathaniel, was too clean, too ethical. You didn't fit into their plans." The colonel leaned forward. "That would explain why they never contacted you to get Williams Textiles involved in anything suspicious." "But it also means," Sophia added with concern, "that by publicly exposing me that night, you unintentionally made Nathaniel a potential target." Nathaniel felt a mixture of admiration for Sophia's intelligence and a growing concern for her safety. "How dangerous is this, really?" Before they could answer, the mansion's phone rang. Mrs. Carman answered, and a few minutes later entered the library with a worried expression. "Sir," she said, addressing Nathaniel, "there's a Mr. Hayes on the line. He says it's very urgent and that it has to do with Miss Sophia." Sophia paled. "Hayes is my real last name. No one should know." Nathaniel put the call on speakerphone after exchanging worried glances with the colonel. "Mr. Williams?" The voice on the other end was smooth but with a threatening tone. "I believe we have some matters to discuss. Who am I speaking to?" "Let's just say I'm someone who knows your employee's past very well, and I'd like to propose a meeting." "What kind of meeting?" "One where we discuss the options you have. You see, little Sophia has information she shouldn't have, and you've been investigating things you shouldn't be investigating." Nathaniel looked at Sophia, who was shaking her head vehemently. "I'm not interested in meetings with people who don't properly identify themselves," Nathaniel replied firmly. "Ah, but I think you'll be interested when I tell you that I have information about Sophia's mother. Mary Ellen Hayes, isn't that right? A lovely woman who lives alone in Santa Monica." The color completely drained from Sophia's face. Nathaniel felt a protective fury that surprised him with its intensity. "If you touch a hair on that woman's head," Nathaniel began. "Oh, there's no need for threats, Mr. Williams. We just want to talk. Tomorrow night at 8. The historic Blue Restaurant downtown. You both come, alone." "We're not going to—" "If you don't show up," the voice turned icy, "Sophia's mother will have an accident, and believe me, it will be much more painful than the fate of her former Silent Eagle's comrades." The line went dead. Sophia abruptly stood up from the chair and began pacing back and forth in the library, her hands trembling. "I have to go," she said in a choked voice. "I can't let them hurt my mother. She's all I have left of my old life." Nathaniel walked over to her and, without a second thought, placed his hands on her shoulders to stop her nervous pacing. "Sophia, look at me," he said in a gentle but firm voice. "You're not going alone. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." She looked him directly in the eyes, and for a moment the world shrunk to just the two of them. Nathaniel realized that his hands were still on Sophia's shoulders and that she hadn't pulled away. There was something electric in the connection between them, an intensity that neither of them had felt before. "Nathaniel," Sophia whispered, "you can't risk your life for me. You don't really know me. You don't know what kind of person I was before." "I know exactly what kind of person you are now," Nathaniel interrupted, taking another step closer. "Brave, intelligent, loyal, willing to sacrifice yourself for the people you love. That's all I need to know." The colonel, who had been watching the interaction in silence, cleared his throat. "If you'll allow me to interrupt this moment," he said with a slight smile, "I think I have an idea for tomorrow night." Nathaniel and Sophia separated, both blushing slightly as they realized what had happened between them. "What kind of idea?" Nathaniel asked. "We're going to that meeting," the colonel said, "but not alone, and we're going to end this once and for all." As the colonel explained his plan, Nathaniel couldn't stop looking at Sophia. He had realized something important. He was no longer fighting just to do the right thing or to protect an employee. He was fighting for a woman who in just 1 week had made him feel more alive and engaged than he had in the previous 32 years of his life. And Sophia, trying to concentrate on the colonel's plan, couldn't ignore the fact that when Nathaniel had touched her and looked at her with that intensity, she had felt something she thought she would never experience again after the horrors of her military past, the possibility of love. But neither of them knew that the next day's meeting wouldn't just be a confrontation with the ghosts of Sophia's past. It would be the ultimate test that would determine whether what was growing between them was strong enough to survive the secrets, the danger, and the revelations that were yet to come. The night was falling over Los Angeles, and with it, the moment that would change their lives forever was inexorably approaching. Chapter 4. The historic Blue Restaurant was located in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, just a few blocks from City Hall. It was an elegant but discreet place, with pink sandstone walls and colonial decor that made it the perfect setting for meetings that required privacy. Nathaniel and Sophia arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, but not alone as they had been instructed. Colonel Ramirez's plan was elaborate but effective. Several plainclothes agents were strategically placed as regular diners at nearby tables. Nathaniel wore a hidden recording device, and Sophia had a small transmitter that would allow the security team to listen to the entire conversation. Nathaniel was wearing an impeccable navy suit, but Sophia had chosen something different for the night. She wore a stylish black dress that had belonged to her old life when she was Lieutenant Hayes. It was a garment she had kept as a reminder of who she had been, and that she was now wearing as emotional armor to face her ghosts. "Are you ready?" Nathaniel asked her softly, offering his arm as they approached the restaurant entrance. "As ready as one can be to face a past one thought was buried," Sophia replied, accepting his arm. The physical contact provided her with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. Inside the restaurant, they were greeted by the maitre d' and led to a private table in the back of the room. 3 men were already waiting for them, and seeing them, Sophia felt as if time had gone back 5 years. The group's leader was a man in his 50s, with perfectly styled grey hair, an expensive suit, and a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. He introduced himself as Mr. Robert Vance, but Sophia immediately recognized him as the same man who had ordered the elimination of her unit years ago. "Ms. Hayes," Vance said, rising politely, "what a pleasure to see you again after so long. And Mr. Williams, it's an honor to finally meet the heir to the most respected textile empire in the country." Nathaniel shook the man's hand without smiling. "Let's get straight to the point. What do you want?" "Please have a seat," Vance insisted, gesturing to the chairs in front of them. "Let's order something to drink and talk like civilized people." For the next few minutes, while they waited for their drinks, the conversation stayed on superficial topics, but the tension at the table was palpable. Sophia studied the other 2 men. One was clearly muscle, the type of person hired to intimidate. The other, however, gave her a shudder of recognition. "Captain Morales?" Sophia whispered, looking at the second man. The man, in his 40s with visible scars on his face and hands, smiled bitterly. "Lieutenant Hayes, or should I say ex-lieutenant. After all, we both officially died 5 years ago." Nathaniel frowned. "You know each other?" "Captain Morales was my direct superior in the Silent Eagles," Sophia explained, unable to hide the betrayal she felt. "I thought he had died in the same accident that supposedly killed me." Morales laughed humorlessly. "Well, let's just say I got a better offer. Mr. Vance here can be very persuasive." Vance took control of the conversation. "You see, the problem we have is very simple. Little Sophia here has information that could be very damaging to certain legitimate interests, and now with your influence, Mr. Williams, that information could reach the wrong ears." "What kind of information?" Nathaniel asked, although he suspected the answer. "Names, dates, account numbers, distribution routes," Vance listed casually. "Lieutenant Hayes had access to our entire, shall we say, specialized import and export system." "Arms trafficking," Sophia corrected in a firm voice. "Don't sugarcoat what you were really doing. You were selling American military weapons to foreign cartels." "Business is business, my dear," Vance replied with an icy smile, "and business has been very good for these 5 years. We're not going to let a sentimental little girl and an idealistic businessman ruin years of careful work." Nathaniel leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing?" "It's very simple," Morales interjected. "Sophia comes with us, peacefully. She disappears again, this time for good. And you, Mr. Williams, forget you ever knew her." "And if we refuse?" Nathaniel asked, although his voice made it clear that he already knew the answer. "Her mother, Sophia," Vance said, pulling out his phone and showing a photograph. "Mary Ellen Hayes, 72 years old. She lives at 47 Flower Street in Santa Monica. A very nice house, by the way. It would be a shame if she had a household accident." Sophia closed her eyes in pain. Nathaniel felt a rage he had never experienced before. "But don't worry," Vance continued. "If you cooperate, your mother will live comfortably for the rest of her days. We could even arrange for her to receive a generous monthly pension." "And me?" Nathaniel asked. "You go back to your normal life. You continue to be the respected businessman you've always been. You forget this ever happened and continue building your textile empire. We all win." Nathaniel looked at Sophia, who was visibly struggling with the decision. He could see the pain in her green eyes, the struggle between protecting her mother and protecting the information that could save many lives. "I need to use the restroom," Nathaniel announced suddenly. "Of course," Vance smiled, "but don't get any silly ideas. Let's remember we're in a public place, but my friends can be very efficient." Nathaniel stood up, but before he walked away, he leaned in and gently kissed Sophia's cheek. It was an intimate, protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by anyone at the table. "Everything's going to be okay," he whispered in her ear. In the restroom, Nathaniel activated his hidden communicator. "Colonel, can you hear me?" "Loud and clear," Colonel Ramirez's voice replied. "Are you ready? We need the distraction in exactly 5 minutes. Is Sophia's mother safe?" "Completely safe. We rescued her 2 hours ago. She's under military protection." Nathaniel smiled for the first time all night. The plan was working. When he returned to the table, the conversation had taken a more threatening turn. Morales had a hand on Sophia's wrist, not exactly holding her, but clearly preventing her from moving freely. "Captain, take your hand off the lady," Nathaniel said in a controlled but dangerous voice. "Or what?" Morales scoffed. "Are you going to call security? Are you going to make a scene?" At that moment, as if it had been perfectly choreographed, the restaurant lights went out. In the total darkness that followed, there were screams, the sound of chairs moving, and what was clearly the sound of a fight. When the emergency lights came on 30 seconds later, the scene had completely changed. Vance and his 2 companions were on the floor, surrounded by federal agents. Nathaniel had Sophia protected behind him, and Colonel Ramirez was standing next to their table with a satisfied smile. "Mr. Vance," the colonel announced formally, "you are under arrest for treason, arms trafficking, murder, and conspiracy against national security." Vance, with blood running from his nose, looked at Sophia with pure hatred. "This isn't over, little girl. I have connections you can't even imagine." "Actually," Sophia interjected, standing up with a dignity that impressed everyone present, "this ended 5 years ago when you decided that money was more important than honor. For the past 3 days, the colonel explained, we've been working with international authorities. Your bank accounts have been frozen, your contacts arrested simultaneously in 3 countries, and we have enough evidence to prosecute your entire network." Nathaniel felt a deep admiration for Sophia. Even in the midst of danger, she had maintained her composure and dignity. As the arrested men were being led away, Nathaniel and Sophia finally found themselves alone at the table, surrounded by the controlled chaos of the security operation. "Are you okay?" Nathaniel asked her, taking her hands in his. "My mother," Sophia began with concern. "She's perfectly safe," Nathaniel reassured her. "The colonel rescued her this afternoon. She's in a luxury hotel under protection until this whole thing is over." Sophia closed her eyes in relief, and for the first time in 5 years she felt she could breathe completely. "Nathaniel," she said softly, "you didn't have to risk your life for me, your company, your reputation." "Sophia," he interrupted, moving closer to her. "All my life I've made decisions based on logic, on profit, on what was right for business. This is the first time I've done something simply because I know, deep in my heart, that it's the right thing to do." She looked at him with eyes full of gratitude and something deeper. "But there's something you need to know," Nathaniel continued. "Something I've discovered these last few days that changes everything." "What is it?" Nathaniel took a deep breath. "Tomorrow we're going to talk to the colonel about something he revealed to me, something about my family and yours that explains why destiny brought us together in such an extraordinary way." Chapter 5. The next morning dawned clear over Los Angeles. Nathaniel had slept little, thinking about the conversation he had had with the colonel after the arrests the night before. The revelation he had received would change everything he knew about his family, about Sophia, and about why their paths had crossed in such an extraordinary way. Sophia woke up in one of the guest rooms of the Williams mansion. Nathaniel had insisted that she stay there until the whole matter was completely resolved. For the first time in 5 years, she had slept without nightmares, without the constant fear of being discovered. But now, in the tranquility of the morning, she wondered what would happen to her life now that she no longer had to hide. They met for breakfast in the mansion's garden, where Mrs. Carman had set a table under the blossoming magnolia trees. It was an idyllic setting that contrasted with the drama of the night before. "How did you sleep?" Nathaniel asked, pouring her coffee into a fine porcelain cup. "Like I hadn't slept in 5 years," Sophia admitted with a genuine smile. "And you?" "Not much," Nathaniel confessed. "I was thinking about what we're going to discuss with the colonel this morning. What's so important that you couldn't tell me last night?" Nathaniel placed his cup on the saucer and looked at her directly. "Sophia, did your mother ever talk to you about your father?" The question took her by surprise. "Not much. He died when I was very young. All I know is that he was a soldier, a national hero, and that my mother loved him dearly." "Why?" "Because the colonel showed me some documents last night. Your father wasn't just a soldier, Sophia. He was Colonel Edward Hayes, founder of the Silent Eagles." Sophia dropped her fork. "What? That's impossible. My mother never told me. There was a reason for that," Nathaniel continued carefully. "Your father discovered the same corruption network that you discovered years later, but he was killed before he could expose it." Tears began to well up in Sophia's eyes. "Are you saying my father was killed by the same people who tried to kill me?" "Yes, but there's more, Sophia. Much more." At that moment, Colonel Ramirez arrived, carrying a box of classified files. His expression was serious, but not somber. "Good morning," he greeted them, sitting down with them. "I assume Nathaniel has already started to explain, Sophia." "Colonel," Sophia said in a trembling voice, "is it true that my father founded the Silent Eagles?" "Your father was my mentor, Sophia, the most honorable man I've ever known in my life. And yes, he created the unit because he had discovered that corrupt elements within the military were selling information and weapons to criminal groups. And that's why they killed him?" "Yes. But before he died, your father made me promise something. He made me swear that if anything happened to him, I would protect his family and ensure that one day, when it was safe, the truth would come out." Nathaniel leaned forward. "Colonel, tell her the part about my family." The colonel opened the box and took out a thick file. "Sophia, your father was investigating a corruption network that included politicians, military personnel, and businessmen. But there was one businessman who adamantly refused to participate, even when they threatened him." "Who?" Sophia asked, although something in her heart already knew the answer. "Alexander Williams, Nathaniel's father." Nathaniel nodded. "My father received several suspicious business offers during those years. He always refused them. He used to say he'd rather go bankrupt than compromise his integrity. Your father and mine worked together in secret," the colonel continued. "Alexander Williams provided financial information about the shell companies, while Edward Hayes investigated the military connections." Sophia felt as if the world was spinning around her. "Are you saying our fathers were allies?" "More than that," Nathaniel said softly. "They were friends, very good friends." The colonel took a black and white photograph from the box. It showed two young men in suits, smiling at the camera. One was clearly a younger version of Nathaniel, the other had Sophia's same green eyes. "This photo was taken the day before your father was killed, Sophia. They were celebrating because they had gathered enough evidence to expose the entire network." "But something went wrong," Sophia whispered. "Edward was killed that night. Alexander received death threats for himself and his family. They both knew they had gotten too close to discovering something big." Nathaniel took Sophia's hand on the table. "My father died 5 years later, of a supposed heart attack, but now we know he was probably also killed. That's why," the colonel continued, "when I discovered that Sophia was working at the Williams mansion, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny completing what our fathers had started." Sophia abruptly stood up and walked to the edge of the garden, needing to process all the information. Nathaniel followed her. "Sophia, are you okay?" She turned to him with tears streaming down her cheeks. "All my life I felt like I was looking for something, like there was a missing piece in my story. Now I understand why." "What do you mean?" "Nathaniel, don't you get it? It wasn't a coincidence that I came to work at your house. Something in my subconscious led me exactly to the place where I needed to be." Nathaniel walked over to her, gently wiping her tears with his thumbs. "Maybe our fathers are watching over us from wherever they are. But there's something else you need to know," Sophia said, looking him directly in the eyes. "Something I'm afraid to tell you." "What is it?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Nathaniel, I'm falling in love with you. I don't know when it happened, if it was when you protected me that first night, or when you decided to risk everything to help me, or sometime in between. But I'm scared." "So scared of what?" "Scared that when all this adrenaline wears off, when you go back to your normal life as a millionaire businessman, you'll realize that I'm just a maid with a complicated past." Nathaniel put his hands on Sophia's face, forcing her to look at him. "Sophia Grace Hayes, you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met in my life. You are brave, intelligent, loyal, beautiful inside and out, and I'm not falling in love with you." Sophia's heart sank for a moment. "I'm already completely in love with you," Nathaniel continued with a smile. "I think I fell in love the moment I saw you trembling but holding your head high with dignity that first night." Without another word, Nathaniel leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft kiss at first, full of tenderness and promises, but when Sophia responded, wrapping her arms around him, the kiss deepened, charged with all the passion and love they had been holding back. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "I love you, Sophia," Nathaniel whispered against her forehead. "And I love you, Nathaniel." From the garden table, Colonel Ramirez smiled as he watched them. Their father's sacrifice had finally paid off. But in that moment of perfect happiness, Nathaniel's phone rang. It was his assistant, with news that would once again test their newly confessed love. "Mr. Williams," the voice sounded worried, "you need to turn on the news immediately. They're talking about you and Ms. Hayes, and it's not favorable." Chapter 6. The midday news was devastating. Someone had leaked a distorted version of the previous night's events to the press, painting Nathaniel as a businessman involved in criminal activities and Sophia as a dangerous fugitive who had manipulated him. The headlines were sensational and damaging. "Textile heir involved in military scandal. Ex-covert agent seduces millionaire. The dark truth behind the Williams empire." Nathaniel and Sophia watched the news from the mansion's library, surrounded by Colonel Ramirez and Nathaniel's legal team. The impact on Nathaniel's reputation would be severe, and they both knew it. "I have to make a public statement," Nathaniel announced, turning off the television. "I have to explain exactly what happened." "Nathaniel," his lead lawyer interjected, "if you do that, you're publicly admitting your involvement in covert military operations. There could be legal consequences." "I don't care," Nathaniel replied firmly. "I'm not going to let them destroy Sophia's reputation with lies." Sophia, who had been silent, finally spoke. "No, Nathaniel, you can't risk everything you've built for me." "What are you talking about?" Sophia stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens where they had confessed their love just a few hours before. "I have a solution, but you're not going to like it." "Sophia, whatever you're thinking, I'm going to disappear again," she announced in a firm voice. "The colonel can give me another identity. I'll go to another country. Start over. You can say publicly that I was an employee who deceived you, that when you discovered my true identity, you fired me immediately." "Absolutely not." Nathaniel walked over to her quickly. "We're not separating now, not after everything we've been through." "Nathaniel, be realistic." Sophia turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "I come from nothing. You're the heir to an empire. Your company has thousands of employees who depend on you. You can't destroy all that for me." "And what about what we just confessed to each other? Does that mean nothing?" It means everything, Sophia whispered. That's why I have to go, because I love you too much to let you ruin your life for me. The colonel, who had been watching the argument, cleared his throat. If you'll allow me to interrupt, I think you're missing something important. What is it? Nathaniel and Sophia asked in unison. The truth is much more powerful than lies, and now we have all the evidence we need to tell the whole story. The colonel walked over to them with a smile. What if, instead of hiding or lying, you just tell the truth, the whole truth? Nathaniel frowned. What do you mean? A press conference, this afternoon. The two of you, together, telling exactly what happened. The story of your fathers, the corruption network, Sophia's heroism, your integrity in helping her. Turn this into the love and justice story it really is. Sophia shook her head. Colonel, that's too risky. If the story isn't received well... Look, the colonel interrupted, pulling out his phone. While you've been here worrying, I've been getting calls. 3 international television networks want to interview you. 2 Hollywood producers are interested in the movie rights to your story. And the president wants to meet with you to personally thank you for exposing the corruption network. Nathaniel and Sophia looked at each other, surprised. What are you saying? Nathaniel asked. That your story is extraordinary. An honest businessman who risks everything to protect an unfairly persecuted heroine. A brave woman who sacrifices her safety to serve her country. The love that blossoms in the midst of danger. The children of 2 heroes who complete the mission their parents started. Sophia felt a spark of hope for the first time all day. Do you think people would really see our story that way? Sophia, Nathaniel said, taking her hands, I don't care how people see it. All I care about is that we live it together. At that moment, Nathaniel's assistant rushed into the library. Mr. Williams, I apologize for the interruption, but there's something you need to see. She turned the television back on, but this time the tone of the news was completely different. A reporter was standing in front of a government building, talking with enthusiasm. In an extraordinary development, official sources have confirmed that last night's arrest of an international arms trafficking network was made possible thanks to the collaboration between Nathaniel Williams, heir to the textile empire, and Sophia Hayes, a former military agent who had been working undercover to expose this corruption network. Far from being a scandal, it seems we are looking at a story of heroism and justice. Nathaniel and Sophia looked at each other in astonishment. How? Sophia began. The colonel smiled. Let's just say I have some media contacts who understand the importance of telling the right story. Nathaniel felt an emotion he hadn't experienced since childhood. It was as if the universe was finally aligning in their favor. Sophia, he said, turning to her, what do you say? Do we face this together? Sophia looked at him, seeing in his blue eyes all the love, determination, and honesty that had made her fall in love with him. Together, she confirmed. The press conference was held that same afternoon in the Williams Mansion's garden. More than 50 journalists attended, along with national and international television cameras and representatives from various human rights organizations. Nathaniel and Sophia sat side by side at a table in front of the reporters. Nathaniel wore a stylish grey suit, and Sophia had chosen a sky blue dress that enhanced her green eyes. Both looked serene, dignified, and united. Nathaniel began by telling the story from his perspective, how he had met Sophia as an exemplary employee, how their friendship and mutual respect had grown, and how he had decided to protect her when he discovered her life was in danger. Sophia continued by narrating her story, her military service, the discovery of the corruption network, the years living with a fake identity, and her decision to finally fight for justice instead of continuing to run. But the most emotional moment came when they talked about the discovery of the connection between their fathers. Our fathers were heroes, Sophia said in a clear and proud voice. They died fighting against the corruption that we were finally able to expose. In a way, we completed the mission they started. Is it true that you two are in love? A reporter asked directly. Nathaniel and Sophia looked at each other, smiled, and Nathaniel replied, yes, it's true. I fell in love with the bravest, most intelligent and most extraordinary woman I've ever met. The fact that destiny brought us together in such an incredible way only confirms that some things are meant to be. What are your plans for the future? Another journalist asked. We're going to continue working together, Sophia replied. We've decided to create a foundation to help other ex-military personnel who need support reintegrating into civilian life. And we're going to make sure that the story of corruption we exposed serves to prevent something like this from ever happening again. After the press conference, Nathaniel and Sophia found themselves alone in the garden, watching the sun set over Los Angeles. The day had been exhausting but liberating. Do you think we did the right thing? Sophia asked, leaning against Nathaniel's chest as he wrapped his arms around her. I know we did the right thing, Nathaniel replied, kissing the top of her head. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Nathaniel, Sophia said softly, there's something else I want to tell you. What is it? Sophia turned in his arms to look at him directly. When I was a little girl, my mother used to tell me stories about the Prince Charming who would one day come and rescue me. I always thought they were just fairy tales, but now I realize she was right. Only my Prince Charming didn't come on a white horse. He came in a perfectly tailored Italian suit and turned out to be the son of my father's best friend. Nathaniel laughed softly. And you think you're my princess? No, Sophia replied with a mischievous smile. I'm your warrior princess, who can take care of herself, but who chose to share her life with you. I like the sound of that, Nathaniel whispered, leaning in to kiss her. The kiss they shared under the emerging stars was different from all the others. It didn't have the urgency of danger or the uncertainty of the future. It was a kiss full of promises, of certainty, of a love that had been tested by fire and had emerged stronger. When they separated, Nathaniel got down on one knee. Sophia gasped, putting her hands to her heart. Sophia Grace Hayes, Nathaniel began with a voice full of emotion. I don't have a ring because this wasn't planned, but I have something much more valuable. He took a gold chain with a small charm from his jacket pocket. It was the eagle from the Silent Eagle's emblem, but crafted in gold and diamonds. This belonged to your father, Nathaniel explained. The colonel gave it to me this morning. He said your father had asked him to give it to your future husband when the time was right. Sophia began to cry, but they were tears of pure happiness. Sophia, will you marry me? Will you spend the rest of our lives completing the mission our fathers started? Will you build an empire of love, justice, and family? Yes, Sophia whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Nathaniel stood up and lifted her into his arms, spinning her around as they both laughed and cried with happiness. 6 months later, the wedding of Nathaniel Alexander Williams and Sophia Grace Hayes was held in the mansion's gardens with 500 guests that included government officials, businessmen, former members of the Silent Eagles, and employees of Williams Textiles. But the most important guests were Mary Ellen Hayes, Sophia's mother, who was finally able to walk proudly down the aisle with her daughter, and the spirits of two fathers who, from wherever they were, had managed to unite their children in the purest and truest love. The Hayes-Williams Foundation became one of the most respected charities in the country, helping not only ex-military personnel, but anyone who needed a second chance at life. And every night, when Nathaniel and Sophia sat in their garden to watch the stars, they remembered that true love is not just about finding the perfect person, but about finding the person with whom you can build a perfect life, no matter how imperfect the path that leads you there. Their story became a legend, not only for the romance, but for the proof that when two brave hearts unite for love and justice, they can change the world.